If I can describe the pace of retirement living between Penang and Singapore, I would describe Penang as a Toyota, slow and steady living, while Singapore would be a Ferrari, running at crazy top speed all the time. I'm John, one half of the Corporate Breakout Couple. I'm Singaporean, my wife is from Penang, Malaysia, and we both early retired in 2020 at the age of 40. We first retired in Singapore, and after the pandemic lockdown was lifted, we shifted to Penang, where Fran is from, in 2022. We stayed there for 3 years and enjoyed our retirement life, and in 2025 last year, we relocated back to Singapore to take care of my aging parents. Till date, we have received many questions from our viewers about retirement living in Penang, and also comparing it to Singapore. And on this channel, we have created many videos on Penang retirement life, the cost of living, in fact, the different Malaysian states as well, where we traveled heavily in those 3 years when we were in Malaysia, and also talking about Singapore cost of living, where we compared what is it like, what's the cost, what's the people like, So in today's video, specifically, I want to answer some of these questions that's been asked by our viewers over these years, and I want to pen it down so that I can give you an update now in 2026. Before that, I'll certainly appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribe to this channel so that we can create more content like this for you. Let's start with food costs in Penang. Well, I'm sharing it from a Singaporean's point of view. So as a Singaporean who owns or holds a lot of Sing dollars and US dollars based on the assets that I own, let's peg it to Sing dollars when we talk about the prices in Penang. So in Penang right now, I would say prices are still really affordable compared to other cities like KL and JB, of course, which the premiums as a Singaporean who goes there to eat has gone up tremendously because of all the hype, right? So back to Penang. In Penang, we're still looking at around 6 to 7 ringgit for a plate of, let's say, wonton mee, right? Wonton mee comes with the noodles, the char siu, right? The barbecue pork, some wontons, right? Your vegetables and a soup. Likewise, in Singapore, for the same like for like, you're talking about 5 to 6 Sing dollars. So if you actually convert and let's say convert to Sing dollars, it's almost half the price in Penang. So if you're operating from a Singaporean's budget, you can actually save half the cost, and let's not even talk about the food quality, yeah? So wonton mee in Penang is so awesome. My favorite all-time wonton mee is in Penang. So I would say quality-wise, taste-wise, there's even no fight. So you're looking at half the price eating in Penang for, I would say, most of the hawker food. Let's move up the food chain. So let's talk about cafes. Cafes in Penang are actually very quaint. There's a lot of different concepts that you can get, and I would say they are almost comparable to the ones in Singapore. Of course, Singapore still has more. Singapore is bigger, but the price, wow, the price, you're looking at about 40 to 50 ringgit for a full meal in Penang cafes, inclusive of, let's say, a pasta and a drink. And the same for Singapore. Unfortunately, since after the lockdown, prices have also escalated. Last time, I remember 10 years, 12 years ago in cafes, you can still get like maybe between $15 to $20 for a plate of pasta in a cafe before GST and service charge. But now, it's hard to find that. Now you're looking at about $20 over, and then you throw on the coffee and add on the GST and the service charge. Easily you're paying for almost 40 Sing dollars for a like for like. 40 ringgit, 40 Sing dollars. That's 1:3. Yeah, so that's how you do your math. So actually eating in cafes in Penang is very affordable, and it's more affordable than, again, KL and JB, because KL you're looking at, I would say, between 60 to 80 ringgit per head, and JB is getting there as well. So Penang, for the value for money for cafes, is definitely better than the other Malaysian states as well. Now, if you talk about restaurants, I would say actually it's not very comparable because Singapore is an international hub that has a lot more diverse cultures, including, let's say, Western cultures. So if you talk about Italian cafes, Greek restaurants, Spanish, all the different kind of so-called exotic type of food, even Mexican, there's a lot more choices in Singapore compared to Penang. So in that aspect, you actually cannot compare. But I will say in terms of prices, quite similar to the cafe example I gave earlier. It's definitely cheaper to eat in Penang, but unfortunately, if you're somebody who's particular about the standard, about international cuisine for Western food, I would say there's no fight. Singapore is definitely better if you don't take the price in comparison. For cooking at home, I will categorize under two types. One is buying produce from the local wet markets. The other one is actually buying from a commercialized supermarket. So in Penang, if you buy the local produce, which are a lot fresher, like the vegetables, some of the fruits, that's grown locally, it's a lot more affordable. I would say your cost savings compared to Singapore, which pretty much import everything, is at least 50 to 60% if you cook at home. Well, if you compare the international cuisine that you buy from the commercialized supermarket, pricing-wise, I would say even quite comparable. Why? It's because in Penang, the demand is not so strong. There's a smaller population which demands this kind of international cuisine. Therefore, it's more expensive for importers to bring in from overseas. And even with comparable pricing, Singapore has a lot more variety because, again, based on the higher demand in Singapore. So if you're talking about cooking international cuisine, I would say it's actually better in Singapore compared to Penang. First of all, a car is a must in Malaysia. And it's not really a like-for-like comparison because Malaysia is so big and Singapore is so small. So if you're talking about owning a car in Penang versus owning a car in Singapore, let's not even go there. There's absolutely no comparison. Now, driving in Penang is something that is very pleasant for me because even though Penang Island is small, even though, yeah, there are more cars on the roads these days, the flow of traffic in Penang as a driver is quite flowy, right? Yes, there are traffic lights, but I would say they are pretty efficient, except for certain areas, like Bayan Lepas and all that near the airport where it's quite messy. But otherwise, I quite enjoy the driving experience in Penang versus in Singapore. So in Singapore, I do drive occasionally. I do have a family car that I borrow. I would say as a driver who's been driving in Singapore for the longest time, before I went over Penang, it has changed. The number of traffic lights has increased tremendously. The number of red light and red light cameras and speeding cameras is everywhere. And it's not so nice to drive in Singapore anymore because there's a lot of start-stop. Even on the expressways, yes, we are very efficient at creating all the connectivity for the drivers, but I would say the driving experience in Penang and Malaysia as a whole is so much better. So definitely, if you want to retire in Penang or in Malaysia for that matter, you must get a car. And of course, let's not even talk about petrol, right? Petrol in Malaysia, if you own a Malaysian registered car, is subsidized. Of course, right now, for foreigners who own Malaysian registered cars, don't have that kind of subsidy. But when I was driving there, of course, friends Malaysian, so we were paying about $2, we were paying 2.05 ringgit, 2.05 for a RON 95, which was super affordable. We bought a Honda City then, which we bought it for 81,000 ringgit, right? Again, the price. We sold it after 3 years. We still sold it for almost 60,000 ringgit. Yeah, so 3 years, if you count the the cost of petrol, I think we pump every 9 to 10 days, except when we go for our road trips, then we pump more. But in Penang Island, because it's small, everywhere we want to get to is quite near. So each pump lasts us about 9 to 10 days. I would say we pump about maybe 36. A full pump will be 35 to 36 liters, right? For Honda City for two of us and our dog when he was still alive. In Singapore, let's talk about Singapore. Singapore, if you go with public transport, then there's no fight. In terms of cost, in terms of convenience, because MRTs are everywhere and they're still building. Buses are so well connected. The whole connectivity via your card or your bank, using your phone, is so seamless, right? And then everything is on the app. Everything is so smooth. So in terms of Singapore, right? Even if I buy the concession card, which I did for some time, it costs $122 now for full bus, unlimited bus and MRT rides. How cool is that, right? Because in Malaysia, if you're talking about public transport, it's still lacking in many ways. Even in KL, only the LRTs operate well within, the Bukit Bintang, the business districts, right? In Penang, there isn't even any trains. Well, the LRTs are being built right now, so hopefully that will change. But looking at Penang's very narrow and tight, infrastructure, everything is overhead. So there's quite a lot of mess right now in Penang because of all the LRT building. I'm not sure how it will turn out and how many people may actually want to go on public transport in Penang. But I will say right now, definitely you must own a car in Penang. I created a video some time back on Penang Island about identifying 7 key areas where you can rent or buy properties in. Do check that out. That gives you quite a comprehensive view in terms of the locality and the pricing. And I would say, okay, Singapore and Penang are both islands. Singapore being a much bigger island than Penang. Okay, of course, Penang, there's also the mainland, but let's focus on the island. So both are limited land. There's scarcity of resources. So by demographics and by geographic factors, you would expect land price to increase in a place where there's scarcity of land, correct? But unfortunately, I would say being a property investor and looking at both markets for the last 10 years, I would say Singapore, of course, prices of land increase a lot more, has appreciated a lot faster than Penang. In fact, for Penang, certain areas, prices of properties are still pretty stagnant. So I would say if you are somebody who wants to own property in Penang versus Singapore, do be careful because Penang is part of Malaysia as well. So you have to take the bigger picture in consideration. And especially if you are a Singaporean or you are a foreigner who's not familiar with Malaysia, you do need to do your homework. In Singapore, generally, prices increase over time. There's always a limited amount of land, and because the population increase is so fast, we are getting a very strong population increase year on year. So definitely the government has to build more properties. So even with public housing, HDBs is also being built pretty aggressively right now. So I would say in terms of properties, as an investor, Singapore definitely has more potential. As somebody who wants to live and retire in, let's say in Penang, I would actually suggest renting. Especially if you are not so familiar, all right, rent for the first, I would say 2 to 3 years, get a feel of the land. Rental is very affordable in Malaysia if you're operating on a Singapore budget, right? 2,500 to 3,000 ringgit can get you a beautiful 3-bedder in a very prime location. Let's say like Tanjong Bunga, right, which is a upmarket area, very near to Gurney Drive. So do your homework. Don't jump into buying a property. Yes, if you want to go for MM2H, then you do need to buy a property, but it doesn't stop you from just renting and experimenting places first before you want to settle down. And don't settle down. Don't forget there's other parts of Malaysia. There's Ipoh, KL, other areas that is quite beautiful. Do check out other videos as well. We cover a lot of states in Malaysia. So that might give you some insights in terms of the costs, in terms of what's going on in those states. So do make your homework, to do your homework before you actually decide to rent or buy in Malaysia. That's an interesting question, isn't it? Well, first of all, I will say I'm biased because my wife is from Penang. I've been to Penang multiple times, even though I've been to JB and KL multiple times as well. We can throw Ipoh into the mix also. I would say Penang really, in terms of all factors, first of all, it's beautiful. You're surrounded by the sea, you're surrounded by hills, you have a lot of greenery. You don't get that in many other states, definitely not in KL, definitely not in JB or even Ipoh. Ipoh has quite a lot of land, but the kind of greenery you see in Penang is a bit like Singapore. So if you're a Singaporean, you will actually feel very at home because it is also, Penang is also one of the colonial places that the British have left their imprint on, like the buildings, the heritage. So you see a lot of similarity. So you'll feel right at home, especially in Penang, but you don't get that in KL. KL to me is quite smoggy. Well, it's the capital city, so it's actually a lot more faster paced. The energy is quite tight, if you know what I mean. Like you feel it's a bit stuck. Right, so I don't really quite enjoy the energy in KL. In JB, it's a different experience. JB to me is a weekend place. You just hop over there for the weekend, you enjoy, and then you come back home to Singapore. So a place to stay in JB, well, it might be a bit controversial, but I will take Penang over JB anytime. Ipoh over JB anytime, also because of the pricing. Penang inflation actually has not gone so much as much as KL and JB because the local support, support propping up their local economy is very strong. So they also demand a very affordable price while they support their own people. So that is another difference as well. Penang food, the local chefs, the head chefs must be a Penangite. So in terms of maintaining the quality and the culture, of Penang, Penang is also there as well. There's more attention to that. So as a Malaysian state, I would say Penang is the best among the three. Again, just now I talked about food, right? Cafe food in Penang is cheaper in KL, then Ipoh, then JB as well. Hawker food is cheaper in compared to KL, Ipoh, and JB as well. So I would say value for money, Penang is the best in terms of food experiences, even the people, right? You actually get a lot of visitors from overseas as well. It's a pretty bustling area, so you have that city life. It's a great balance between having that and some nature. Having experienced retirement in both cities, Penang and Singapore, I would say they are actually very different. I wouldn't want to talk about, the cons. I would actually focus on the pros. So in Penang, definitely the pace of life is a lot slower. People there are generally quite chill. The people working there as well, compared to, let's say, KL. KL people are very fast-paced, like Singapore. So in Penang, there's a great balance in terms of quality of life, or I would say work-life balance, right? Everybody's favorite word. As a retiree, it's even slower, right? Because obviously we are not working. So you really get to enjoy both a blend of nature and the city at a slower life. You don't feel rushed. So it feels great in terms of that. In terms of pace of life in Singapore. So life in Singapore, even as a retiree, is quite fast. You can feel it when you get onto the train. Like when I get to the train, I'm not even talking about peak hours. The people movement is faster, right? People move a lot faster. You can feel that everything is going faster. Well, that's good, that's bad. It's good because you are more efficient, you're more productive. It's bad if you're trying to slow down your life, your pace of life. So as a retiree in Singapore, I would say the experience is quite different than Penang. But if let's say I want to be productive and create work, or rather, if I want to work on something, it's better to be in Singapore because you're surrounded by people, who are always, willing to, put in the work, put in the shift. Whereas in Penang, sometimes they're quite chill, quite relaxed. So you might feel slowed down by their energy. So it really depends on what you are looking for. If you are looking at some, a place where you want to fully settle down and just, go off the grid, maybe not even Penang. Definitely not Singapore. You might want to go to a even slower state, or maybe you go to Thailand, where there are a lot more places where you can really go off the grid. But if you are a city person like Fran and myself who needs to stay in a city, Singapore and Penang both have their own value proposition. At the end of the day, what I would suggest is put yourself in a strong financial position, right? In the case of Fran and myself, we have created multiple cash flow income. So we actually have the choice to retire in either country. In fact, we don't intend to just stop at these two countries, Singapore and Malaysia. We intend to go other places as well. Of course, that is a later plan. Right now, our focus is to take care of my aging parents. So that's a privilege as well because we are financially strong. We have this position to, spend more time with our loved ones. So I would actually like to send this reminder to each and every one of you who are looking to break out the rat race, want to get your financial independence, and have the option to retire early. So put yourself in that position first. Don't let money stress you down. Have your money handled so that you can then really decide where you want to retire in the world, right? You can be any part of the world, why not, right? With that, I hope this video has given you value. Do put in your questions and your comments below if you have any. Otherwise, I'm signing off. I'm John, one half of the Corporate Breakout Couple. Do hit the like button and subscribe to this channel, and we create more content like this for you. Bye-bye.